Today, I am here to give you the assurance that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to
haven't
see the
forgotten
new
you, Jay.
evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs and gain traction and change the world, we have got to take seriously our responsibilities as husbands and fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then that something that our world is desperately in need of in the midst of this crisis is Catholic Christian masculinity.
If you want to be a good father, then bring your children to confession with you.
I can't get there unless I become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined. He's not a man.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Sir Delane G's.
Warning. I would go with
The
that.
Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Real fast.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. Shout out to all the men who are doing Excess 90 in the Northeast.
Respect.
Much respect to you guys. You know, we did a conference in Worcester, outside of Boston, not too long ago.
Do you mean Worcester?
No, I mean Worcester.
Worcester?
And turns out the water is much colder over there, and so the cold showers are
There's some
extra grace
in that. In those
extra
cold
graceful
showers. I mean,
cold
really,
showers.
it's like lucky.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of you guys.
Yeah. You guys get all that extra grace.
And I'm over here
It's
just
not even fair.
trying, but just can't get there. Yes,
You guys
so
need to share some of the grace.
I'm assuming that people up in North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Canada all share the same experience.
First of all, I actually don't feel very sorry for people who live in North Dakota because, like, you live in North Dakota, okay? To this day, I understand now, like, we have modern homes, like, central heating. What I can't figure out is, like, about 100 years ago when people were, like, moving across the country. My dates might be wrong. But they got there and said, this is it, guys. Pitch the tent. I think
the homestead's here.
Exactly. I think we'll stay here.
Yes, we like negative 20-degree weather.
Yeah. It's like, I don't get it. But, hey, so, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. That was, but that was an experience.
For all folks, I guess.
I guess I just did not realize how cold water can be without freezing until then.
You know, and that water is probably only like 40 degrees.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like water, it hurts.
It hurts.
Even like 50-degree water, you get hypothermia in 50-degree water. 50, 50, 50. If you're in 50-degree water for 50 minutes, there's a 50% chance you have hypothermia.
Man,
how about that? Boy Scouts.
There you go.
The things you
back
remember.
whenever it was for boys.
Yeah, and people knew what that was.
Right.
So today is Palm Sunday.
That we're recording this.
We're recording
this
on Palm Sunday.
Regardless, it's Holy Week.
It's Holy Week. I just want to tell a story about what happened in Mass today.
Very well.
So the liturgy, we did it a little differently. We started outside the church for that entrance gospel reading. And then we processed all together into the church. So it's a little bit chaotic when you've got the whole...
It's like the land run. You know
it
how,
was a little bit like a land
like
run.
How, at the beginning with Oklahoma, we said, like, all this Indian territory, we're going to just auction this. I mean, if you can get there, it's yours.
Right.
Same scenario with pews this morning.
Right, and you're like going to your seat, just trying to be polite, trying to resist that thought of like, somebody better not sit in my seat.
And not throw elbows.
Right, so we got to our pew, which is, it's our pew, all right?
It has Niall's name on it.
Right, we paid for it, or I don't know. And
there's a lot of people that hate like.
You're still like, okay, yeah, you whatever, but like I'll bet they still sit in mostly the same place. Like it's not just church. When you were in
we're creatures
college,
of habit.
You sat in this, like
we're creatures
you
of
just
habit.
show up in a classroom. You probably sat in the same place all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's familiar. So in the pew that we sit in is a large one, and it's my family, Pamela's parents, my parents, and my sister and her kids. So there's 8 children and 6 adults.
It's all beautiful though.
It's great, and it's like we're all a family. We can all sit together in this big pew. It's awesome,
right?
And so today in the chaos, my wife's parents were already there, and so there was this lady. She's never been to St. Benedict's before. She's visiting, and I think her name was April. She was coming down the aisle and sees this pew, which with just like this couple. About her age, and she's like, wait, I'll sit here. At that moment, she walks into the pew. What she didn't realize is that the Dvorak's, my sister and her family, were
right behind her,
about to come in. And as soon as she walks into this pew, Pamela and I also enter the pew on the other side.
So she's about to get landlocked.
Right, she did. She went from going like, oh, here's a nice open pew, to going like, what happened? It's like a setup. And immediately, so when Pamela and I see this lady like filing into the pew, is like, oh no, this poor woman. She has no idea what's about to happen to her. And so we just started laughing because immediately all of our kids like walk to the other side to go sit with their cousins, and like it's a little bit chaotic with her. And she's watching all these kids like
pile in. Like, is this the Von Trapp family? Like, what's happening?
Right, who are these kids like walking by me? What are you doing? And then she puts it together and she was, first of all, she loved it. Okay. So
good.
You're right. It could have gone either way.
Right.
But she thought it was wonderful because it really is nice to get to see all these. There's 7 girl cousins that are all very close in age, And anyway, that was just a pretty funny story.
But did she hang tight?
She did. Oh, she stayed.
Good.
She did say, oh, do you want me to leave? And everyone was like, no, come on.
Hang out.
You're in the family now. Like, I'm not getting up. Yeah. All right.
We're not moving.
Right. So it was just pretty funny.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always funny when that happens. Same with us. We have a pew,
Right.
Your
parents,
be fair,
they didn't make it. They weren't quick enough. They
didn't
were
actually.
they were sitting with
my sister, yeah, and brother-in-law. They didn't. We were not originally planning on going to the 9 a.m. mass today.
Oh.
But we had a change of plans at the last minute, so we called an audible.
What were you gonna do?
We're just gonna skip. We were gonna go to 5 p.m. It was gonna be Luke's fishing tournament today, and it got canceled. Because
the tournament got canceled?
Yes, because of the severe wind. We've been having some crazy wind.
Yeah.
And so
I decided to take my greenhouse down on Friday.
It was probably a good call.
Because it broke.
Right.
It's broken. It blew over.
Yeah, that stinks.
It's like, well, I guess I'll take that down since it's already down. It's about time anyway.
Okay, so tonight we're drinking a bourbon.
Yes.
We're going to switch it. I think we've been
I've already been drinking it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We are having Jefferson's Reserves. It's the Pritchard Hill Cabernet cask finish. So it's their 8-year. It's Jefferson Reserve's 8-year whiskey.
Okay.
That they finish for 12 months roughly.
Oh, that's a long time.
And a Cabernet in Pritchard Hill's Cabernet cask strength. Now, what they do is
I'm excited to know what the price is on this bottle.
Okay. Well, but what they do is I forget where it's supposed where it's barreled, but it's really hot, and they do it in the summer to really
get a lot of expansion.
Yeah, get a lot of expansion and get it to go into the wood and then back out over those 12 months. And so that's why you can see it's like it has almost like this very red
tint.
A
great color.
Yeah, a red tint to it for the Cabernet. And Pritchard Hill is known, in the Napa Valley area to have very, very nice red Cabernet wines. It's top of the hill, so it has high elevation, and I don't know. I'm not a wine guy, but apparently that helps with the the way grapes grow
With,
for
like, the wine.
the fermentation of the wine.
Right.
So, and I got to give a shout out to actually this bottle was bought for me congratulations for John Dominic by guys that I work with at Chancery, Deacon Garlic, Dr. Malash, Dr. Aaron Henderson. All three have been on our and David Dean. So everybody that bought it for me has been on.
They've been on our show, yeah.
Been on the Catholic Man Show. But yeah, so they all pitched in and bought this bottle of whiskey for me.
Do you know what the cost is on it?
I think it's about roughly $70.
Okay, because Jefferson Reserve is typically not. It's typically a very affordable.
Well, their main line, yes.
Yeah.
All of their extra bottled and things like that. Their ocean, man, what is it called? Ocean Reserve or something like that. That they have is like $140.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of really high
That's kind of strange.
Their
that
entry
you'd have your main dish
is like $35.
Yeah, like $35.
And then they quickly jump up to they have a $70 range, and then they have like $130, $150 range.
Yeah.
So we're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass. Cheers.
Cheers to Jesus.
Cheers, Jim. Cheers. So yeah, like we said, it's a very dark red.
It's really mellow on the nose.
Yeah, you can get the dark fruit notes to it, the cherries, the raisins.
It's
get
very
a little bit
inviting.
Yeah.
It's also delicious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I was so excited to hear the price, because I was really hoping it would be like $40. You know, it's like
that is really pleasant.
Yeah. It's you said 75?
70, I think.
70. I mean, that's
Wow.
it's a fantastic bourbon.
When we get back, we're gonna hear the yummy scale on this.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be relatively high.
We'll see. We'll be right back. What are you doing, Jim?
Getting a call from India.
Is that Father Nicholas?
Yeah. Hello, Father Nicholas.
Hello. Happy Palm Sunday. Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably not Sunday anymore.
It's Monday, yeah.
We've got to run. We're recording.
We just got a call from priest in India.
Just getting calls from priests in India.
Just
from tomorrow.
Hanging out from tomorrow, land of tomorrow. All right, let's keep rolling.
Where does it happen? Is it in the Pacific somewhere?
I would say the Atlantic.
No.
What?
No, it's west of here, west of the U.S., right?
Well, I mean, it's a globe, so it just depends on what you mean by that.
I don't think.
Remember, Ireland is 6 hours ahead of us.
Right, Jim. Where does it turn into like tomorrow? Where does the date change? Is it in the Pacific? Do you know? Yes. Yeah, it's not the Atlantic, because that's east of us. So that means.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Look, I'm not like a cartologist or a map person.
So, you guys just stop being idiots and let's just keep going.
Okay. Here we go.
Radio Gold.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. We are Sans Juan. We do have Jimbo Baggins in the house. And Jimbo, what's the yummy scale on this Jefferson Reserve?
I like the bourbon, so.
You're a bourbon guy.
Yeah,
4.8. 4.8 yummies.
4.8.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if we've ever had a 4.8 recorded on the yummy scale.
I think last week we said a 4, and we were like, what?
This is 4.8.
Now we're at a 4.8.
We're in new territory right here. So
uncharted waters.
Yeah. Speaking of uncharted waters.
Okay. That makes me nervous.
I'm getting 2 cows tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm pretty excited about it.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. The kids, when we found out today that we're doing it tomorrow. The stockyards, Monday, it's the only, it's every Monday, that's the auction.
Are all your fences up?
Yeah, the fences are up. I still have some to repair.
Because like
in
if you don't
areas
have
where
fences,
the cows, they don't know what is your yard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I got that. I do have fences to repair in areas where the cows will not be.
We're good. I got a shock collar on for them.
Right.
I don't know if that would work or not.
It's like, how like when a dog's in your yard, when the dog's in your yard, it obeys.
Right.
So it should be fine.
It should be all right.
But we're pretty excited. The kids were thrilled that it's actually happening tomorrow. Right?
Okay.
So we're all going to go
Okay.
to the auction.
You gonna name one tender, one loin?
Yeah. So they asked, they asked like, well, can we name them? And I said, sure. I mean, but you got to remember, we're going to kill them and eat them. So I just want you to know that. I try to use like blunt language to set the right precedent. Don't get the wrong notion about this animal.
Okay.
So
Did they receive it well?
they kind of said, yeah, can we still name it? And I was like, go for it.
Yeah. What are they gonna name it?
I don't know. Probably something dumb.
They're not the best at naming things.
Well, actually, that's not it. It'll probably be, if history is a guide, it'll be something very girly.
Sure.
But so I don't know that they don't have much practice naming boys, and I'm gonna try to get 2 steers. So
Okay.
We'll see. I don't know. I'll let you know. I'll report back.
Okay. Brisket is a good name.
I like that. That's a great name.
Yeah, I think associating it with the food is a good.
Yeah, and sirloin, like sir
and loin.
Sirloin.
Yeah. I like that as well.
Yeah.
I'd pitch those ideas and see what happens.
You know what? I'm just gonna let it happen because
They're
I don't
gonna
really
be girl names.
I don't really care what they name the cows.
They'll end up being girl names.
It's totally fine with me.
Yeah. Jim also wanted to remind us, he did remind us, and he wanted us to let you know that we have a shop. So if you go to catholicmanshow.com/store, you can find some of our stuff. We still have beanies, hats, a few hats left. We have some t-shirts, hoodies. Obviously, the Catholic Man Show Glencairn glasses etched with lasers, the Catholic Man Show logo on it. The best party drinking vessel you can have
out of the glare.
And then we also have 16-ounce beer can beer glasses, also phenomenal for just drinking water or anything else.
Also important to remember, when you receive a package from us after ordering something in our store, make sure to save the box, because after Jim dies and he's declared a saint, that will be at least a third-class relic.
Yes. At least.
I mean, it depends on how long the box spent in his home.
Jim, also, just FYI, Jim is our shipping and logistics manager as well as our bodyguard. So we're not Amazon, right? So if you order something or you become a patron, because all patrons that are $10 or more a month get a Catholic Man Show Glencairn glass for free as a thank you gift. But we're also not Amazon. So you got to give us a couple weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks for us to get everything out. I know that's not normal. That's not the normal thing. We're accustomed.
Other people are better at it.
Yeah, we're accustomed to instant gratification, but that's not us. So,
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, CatholicManShow.com. You can find it there.
Yeah, support our show.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
We'd appreciate it.
So what are we talking about today, Adam?
You want to jump in?
Anything else? I do feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember what it is.
I do want to talk about something else real fast.
All right.
Dave and I have reached a new level in our show. I don't know if it's causation or correlation. I'll let you guys be the judge. But it appears when Dave and I travel by plane and we order a drink on the plane, we do not have to pay for it.
Studies are still determining the cause, whether it is simply the divine will,
whether it is the Catholic Man Show,
because of our outrageous fame, and
ridiculously good looks,
which is, I think, viable, and as a control, they're also testing coincidence, just as a control. That's, I mean, we all know that's not it. But 3, at least on Southwest, if you want to fly Southwest, because they don't make you pay for your drinks. All right. That's just what it comes down to.
If you have their stock, sell.
Right. That's what I said. Like, I'd be selling stock because they're just giving alcohol away like crazy on this airline. We ordered one on our way home from Phoenix. Didn't have to pay for it. Then on our way back from Boston.
We were like, what nice guys.
Yeah.
They just like let us order it. They didn't even make us pay.
And we were like, I think they forgot.
Right.
Like, when has this ever happened? Like, we lucked out. This is what a great day.
Big time.
You know, because it's like, oh, we're landing. I guess we don't have to. I guess we're not paying for our drinks. All right. So then on our way home from Boston, 2 flights in a row. So really 3 flights in a row on Southwest, where we ordered drinks. And the one from St. Louis to Tulsa, I looked around because, you know, the writing was starting to be on the wall. And there was a lot of people who ordered drinks. Nobody paid for them.
Well, they knew it was on the house on us.
Or something. So anyway, that's been cool.
So if you want to have us out for your Catholic Man show or your Catholic Men's Conference.
Hopefully we can fly Southwest.
And that'd be great.
Yeah. Get some free drinks.
Explain that you were flying on a feast day for Exodus 90.
Oh, yes. So
It was the Annunciation.
And
a Sunday.
And a Sunday, yes. So we did not do anything illegal according to Exodus 90.
Yeah, we don't want to scandalize any.
We're still following the guidelines.
Yeah. Exodus youngsters out there.
We're very, we're at the home stretch.
Happy day 84.
84, yep. Okay, so yeah. So I want to make a defense tonight, that every man is called to be an intellectual man.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would like to throw out a few suggestions. This is based off of. This is a phenomenal little book. If you are starting, like if you maybe you just came into the Catholic Church and you start realizing all the Catholic intellectual giants that the Church has produced. Maybe you don't even know some of them.
Maybe some people at your parish who like, wow, that guy knows a lot.
Right, and maybe you have been, let's just say, reading Scott Hahn and Dr. Edward Shree and like all these like really great Catholic, modern writers, and you're like Brant Petrie, another great one, and you're like, I want to go deeper. I want to go back earlier, and you're trying to formulate your intellectual life. You're trying to make a plan on like what do I do? How do I do this? And you start realizing I'm not even sure where to start. Right? You have Aquinas, you have Augustine, you have Bonaventure, you have Bernard of Clairvaux, you have Saint Teresa of Avila, you have Lisieux, you have like all these different like just beautiful, intelligent, holy Catholics throughout the ages, and you just don't even know where to begin. Not to mention like obviously the Bible, which should be where you should start.
Oh, yeah.
St. Peter, St. Paul, all these phenomenal Catholic intellectual thinkers. It can be overwhelming. It can be something that...
you can literally start anywhere. You can, like...
You can. But
any of those people.
I think that it's beneficial to really think through before you start, have the end in mind, be intentional about the way you think on your studying. For instance, right now we're reading Homer. You and I and a couple of other men in a Sunday Great Books group. And we're reading Homer because Homer is like kind of the starting point of Western culture, right?
Yeah.
And we can't really read Plato yet without reading Homer because Plato is referencing Homer a lot. So if you read Plato without reading Homer, you kind of miss some things, and it's not as rich. So we read Homer so that way you can read Plato, and you read Plato so that way you can read Aristotle, and you read Aristotle so that way you can read Boethius, and you read and it goes on and on and on, right? Okay, so I think that's a good plan, a good way to go about your intellectual life, a way of starting to read literature. I also think, though, that it can be overwhelming, and I know that there are a lot of men out there who are incredibly busy and don't have a reading schedule. They're listening to us and be like, yeah, that would be really nice to be able to sit down and read, right? To pour scotch, light a fire, and sit by the hearth and just read.
Yeah, honestly, that's
uninterrupted.
why I stopped listening to podcasts a couple years ago.
Well, don't do that, or at least don't
Or
listen.
I dialed it way back.
Listen to the Catholic Man Show.
Obviously.
Natural.
Obviously. But I started just listening to audiobooks because, I mean, we're going to be talking about mostly non-fiction today.
Correct.
But there's a similar path on the fiction side of the scale.
Right. And you start realizing that authors are talking to one another throughout the course of history.
This great conversation that's taking place.
Right. So anyway, when we get back, I want to start broad, and we'll go to specific.
Broad to specific?
Yes. And I want to talk about this book that I briefly referenced in this section. We'll talk about it more on the other side of the break.
Anything? No? Jim?
Yes, sir.
Anything you want to... Okay. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Sipping on a little bit of Jefferson's Reserve. Pritchard Hill's Cabernet cask finish.
It's so good.
It's a delicious bourbon.
Really loving it. It's getting a little spicier, I think.
It's nice. It has it's very well balanced of sweet, spice.
Everyone will like this. Would like this bourbon.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay, so before the end of the break, I was mentioning that tonight I'd like to discuss the intellectual life.
Okay.
And the importance of it. And I think that the intellectual life, or the intellectual man, is something that sounds very intimidating. I think that it sounds like that it's not for every man, every Catholic man.
Sure.
And that's just not true.
Uh-huh.
I think that we conflate sometimes academia with with just the intellectual life. Mm-hmm. And those are two different things.
Right.
But just when you think of the intellectual man, you immediately think of the academia world.
Sure.
And I want to dispel that thought.
You want to disabuse people.
I want to at least create a valley between the two.
Okay.
To where you can separate and understand that there is a difference, and that we're all called to the intellectual life.
I try to use the word disabuse as much as I can.
Okay.
This is a really great opportunity, and I'm really, really thankful that it happened to me today.
Good. Okay, so
speaking of intellectual life, or at least posing as one,
and everything is going very immensely. So we're just gonna throw out words. Okay.
That was funny.
Okay, so this book that I have come across, and they read in the diaconate formation here in the Diocese of Tulsa and Eastern Oklahoma, at least parts of it. It's called The Intellectual Life. It's Spirits, Conditions, and Methods. It's by a Dominican priest. I am going to butcher the name, but it's A.G. Sertalanges.
Oh, you did. I mean, I don't know what it is either, but it ain't that. Let me see. I would say Sertalanges.
Sertalanges. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know. I also don't know. That's a crazy name.
It's a French Dominican. I am starting to really enjoy some of the French Dominicans.
Oh yeah.
Just their writing style. Obviously Lagrange, Caribou,
right?
The Caribou.
The Caribou, yeah.
And then him. There's a couple others that I've come across where they're very concise, but they're not heady. They're not too superfluous.
Okay, nothing is what they say.
Well, that's not true. That's what. Anyway, I'm not gonna go down that road. Anyway, so he talks about. So this whole book is he makes a defense for the intellectual vocation. So that he calls that we're all called to the a vocation of the intellectual life, regardless of your state in life, regardless if you are a monk.
What's his rationale? Is it because we're made as rational creatures and therefore we're all called to the intellectual life?
Correct. Yes. And obviously there's.
I guess I don't even need to read the book.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not reading it.
I'll just read the chapter headings.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he makes the defense that we're all body soul. We're body soul composites, and that we think and experience reality with our whole being, right? And so,
yes.
And so, as we do that, which is different than what Plato says. Plato says that our thoughts come from our soul, which is interesting. But
that is interesting.
But that because knowledge is a part of every facet of our day, and that we are body soul creatures, and that the more, and he makes the line of argument is that the more we are in tune with reality, the closer we get to reality. Reality is truth. Truth is a creator. Truth is a person, namely the person of Jesus Christ, who is our creator. God the Father, the creator of everything. And so the closer that we get to reality, thus the closer we actually get to our creator, namely God.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we are attuning our appetites and our faculties to that which is true, we have a better understanding of truth, and we can fall deeper in love with that truth. Thus, we are all called to the intellectual life.
Well said.
Well, that's not me that said that. But so he also makes this really, I think this was beautiful. So here's what he says. He says, how can we manage to think rightly with a sick soul? So if our soul is unhealthy, how can we think about making wise decisions, prudent decisions, good decisions in general, observations of reality? How can we think that we're doing that right if our soul is not rightly ordered? So he says, I'm quoting here, how will you manage to think rightly with a sick soul, a heart ravaged by vice, pulled this way and that by passions, dragged astray by violent and guilty love?
Yeah. So we shouldn't be dating the daughters of gluttony.
Correct. Jim. That's a callback.
Guys, he broke up
He
with
broke
them,
up with
okay?
her. He broke up with them.
He broke up with her, okay? And he did it. He did use the "it's not you, it's me."
It's me. Yeah. But he still did it. So anyway, so he says, why be an intellectual? This is the reason why. If we're wanting to tune ourselves with reality, and if we're not living a moral, virtuous life, then there's no way we can actually see reality for what it truly is.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think, and this is what happens in today's world when we have this nihilistic, materialistic type of thought process, right? Is that we consume, we take, we give in to all of our passions and desires, and we can't see anything outside of what I want.
Right.
We can't see anything outside of what pleases me and gratifies me.
I mean, don't you think that a lot of that is a symptom of the way we live our lives today, where we have insulated ourselves from reality. We experience a derivative of reality instead of reality itself, right? Friendship is mediated through a screen,
right?
Where we have literally adopted the idea that food comes from the store.
Right.
It comes from the earth, from the ground, and so there's just so many things about that, that where we have kind of created, I think, these symptoms in the choices that we've made. And if you look at them individually, it's like, okay, well, a lot of those choices are good, right? They're good in of themselves, but we need to moderate our use of them. And how do we know how to do that? It's pursuing exactly what we're talking about tonight.
Right. Aquinas actually says the exercise of the moral virtues, of the virtues by which our passions are held in check, so our appetites are held in check, our passions and desires are held in check, is of great importance to the acquisition of knowledge. So, like, he makes this whole case. I think there's 16. He goes into 16 different articles, I think, on this whole topic. One of the most. Thomas will probably want to correct me on this, but I think it's one of the most articles on a single question.
Oh, really?
In the Summa. But he goes through this whole understanding of that you cannot actually acquire true knowledge without living the moral life. But he makes this Dominican makes this this claim that concentration is absolutely necessary to live out one's vocation. That concentration is part of your vocation.
That reminds me of Montessori, like Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. One of the things they say is concentration leads to contemplation.
But that's why do we teach them that?
Right, exactly. You teach your
because
children.
Because it's reality.
You know, like a lot of it is just fine motor skills stuff that they're working on. It's like, what does this have to do with religion? Well, you know, there's a whole philosophy behind it, which is actually very beautiful and rich. Concentration. If you need to learn to concentrate on something so that you can contemplate the important truths in life.
Right. And train your mind to stay concentrated on something.
Which is so hard. I mean, like, it's hard for me. I recognize that, you know, like distraction is a real struggle for me in my prayer life, in my day-to-day life. And I think it's because of the things I just said. You know, like, you know, this device in my pocket that I carry around with me, it's like tugging at my concentration. It tears it away. And so it makes it more difficult.
Yeah, he says that passions and vices relax our attention. It scatters it and leads it astray. And that our passions and vices injure the judgment in roundabout ways, of which Aristotle and others have scrutinized these type of distractions and reasons of being able to do so. But so I really liked how he says that passions and vices relax our attention. So it's it's not a positive. It's like a negative. You know,
right.
Like
it's taking away
from a good.
Yeah,
it's taking away from a good. Like evil is a deprivation of the good, right? So like these vices and passions take away from something that is good, and relaxes our. I just really like that idea of relaxing our attention, because what happens? I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, but you know, like what happens with King David when he relaxes his concentration of being a king.
Bathsheba.
Like here he is. He's supposed to be going out to war, and he's not. He decides not to. He shirks his duties.
He's shirking his vocation.
Right. He's shirking his vocation, shirks his duties, and goes out to go have a leisurely evening. And what does he see but Bathsheba? And this is where I think a lot of temptation arises in men, is when we're not concentrating. And this also kind of goes back to an episode that we talked about not too long ago on watchfulness, right? Like not being attentive to our thoughts,
not being vigilant,
and vigilant leads to these types of sins. So anyway, he gives those are the kind of the common virtues. He then talks about virtue proper to the intellectual life, the spirit of prayer, and the discipline of the body, which we'll get into on the other side of the break.
Very good. You want to just go right into it?
Yeah, because we got a lot to.
Yeah.
We got a lot to cover.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. We're talking about the intellectual life and why you need it.
And why it's absolutely necessary for holiness.
Indeed, right. That's the whole point. That's why you need it.
Right. And we'll get into like I love this, but we'll get into this a little later. But about how different vices of the intellectual life lead you away from actually holiness. And anyway, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But so again, we're referencing the intellectual life, its spirits, conditions, and methods. It's a book. It's forwarded by Father James Scholl, which is a rest in peace, a intellectual giant of the 20th century. He was phenomenal. He forwarded several of, at least one of Joseph Pieper's books. Wrote a lot in Nova et Verita. Like he was just such a solid man. Anyway, so I also wanted to discuss this tonight because I want to challenge men to really take seriously and concentrate on how can I continue learning more and getting out of this idea of apathy or slothfulness or complacency, and really challenge men to get together and have a book club or put yourself on some kind of reading schedule. Do something. Engage your senses. Engage your intellect and push yourself. And because this is what actual leisure is, right? Pieper talks about how leisure is like what is school. Mm-hmm. Is like this is the Greek word is school.
Yeah. It means that's what it is.
That's what it is. And so it's learning new things. And like if you're a guy who is working hard, you come home, you try to be a good dad, try to be a good husband, you feel exhausted at the end of the night, you catch TV for a few or scroll on your phone for an hour or two and then get up and do the exact same thing and you feel exhausted the next morning. Like you're the guy I'm talking to and challenging you to change and consider changing and adopting this intentionality of concentration of a reading schedule, because ultimately what ends up happening, and you'll find this out once you get into the thick of it, you feel more at rest. You're more restful.
Mm-hmm. While you're learning, right? It's not like your whole life you're gonna like have more energy because you read Plato, but you will actually find that you're able to rest more because you have true leisure instead of just like downtime.
Mm-hmm. So anyways,
downtime is actually anxious because ultimately you know that it's like, it's sort of like when you wake up and you know your alarm's going to go off in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so now you're like, I need to sleep for 5 more minutes. And you're like trying to sleep because here soon I'm going to have to get back to work. Right. That's downtime. It actually doesn't
make you any more restful.
It actually doesn't give you any rest.
Right.
But leisure does.
That's exactly right. And so if you're also looking for something, our patrons, we have a book club that we meet with. We're actually reading Leisure, the Basis of Culture. Currently, we're going through that, and it's great. So if you're looking for something, we do a book club for our patrons.
But yeah, you really do have to schedule this. I mean, you have to be intentional about it. And I think you and I have both made this change in our life in the last couple of years.
Correct.
I've made mine a little bit slowly, but it has been really beautiful. Because I remember I used to think like, when I talked to these people who would read these books, and I would say, when are you reading?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when do you do that?
Right.
And I thought that I just cannot do that. I physically, I guess I'm busier than you. And actually that is not true. I've learned that those people who are reading books, they're actually, some of them, much busier than me.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've incorporated these things into my schedule, somehow I find that I have the time to do it. Plenty of time,
right?
Actually.
And again, it's not like sitting down for 3 hours to study.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what we're talking about, right? It could be even just 30 minutes.
Sure.
15 to 30 minutes and start off there. So anyway, he talks about, I want to get into this because he talks about, before he gets into virtue proper of the intellectual life, he says there's enemies of knowledge. And you should be aware of these enemies of knowledge. First is sloth. He mentions this first.
Yeah.
And he says it's the grave of your best gifts.
Ooh, I like that.
The grave of your best gifts.
That's nice.
I mean that kind of
wording. I like the wording.
Yeah, it's a word. It's great wordsmithing.
I don't like the thing,
but it's a little bit of a twist of the knife, right?
Yeah.
That it's the grave of like the Lord, and this is, we've talked about this on the show before too, but something that on your final judgment, the Lord will show you all the graces and gifts that He wanted to bestow upon you, and He desired for you.
Yeah.
And you said no.
Right. You just never accessed them.
Right. So enemies of knowledge is sloth, sensuality. It makes the body weak and lethargic.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we see in pornography. Completely, we see men who are a slave to pornography, and their appetites just
you actually lose your vigor.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another one is pride, because it darkens your intellect.
Right.
Envy. So these are a lot of the capital sins. But then the last one is irritation. And he says it repels criticism and comes to grief on the major rock of error. Like,
so what is the vice of irritation?
Well, so he. This is something that that hit home with me a lot because, like, a lot of times if I take on a position and I feel like this is the correct position, and then there's somebody who is making a compelling argument against my position.
Like an intellectual argument.
An intellectual argument, against my position. I still feel like that I'm right, but it's like just because I can't articulate it doesn't mean that I'm not right, you know? But I have this irritation with the person and not the argument itself. And I'm irritated about the person.
Yeah.
And then that gets into more of an emotional argument and not a logical argument.
Sure.
And so...
how many times have you left a situation, I think everybody has done this, in the moment, the irritation, I can't, and then like you get home and you're like, why didn't I just say this and this and this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, okay, now that I can think clearly about it, it's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're irritated, it isn't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Again, another reason why fasting is so important. When you subdue those type of appetites and desires, you're able to control those things. You're able to control your emotions even better, to be able to see the true, to see the arguments, to kind of suppress like some of your emotions in that moment, to be able to logically see the arguments.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so then he gets into virtue proper, to the intellectual life.
Okay.
Which we've talked about before, actually. We've talked about this before with Father Gregory Pine, who is the perfect man to talk about this topic with. But
because if everyone has a vocation to the intellectual life, he has two.
Right. Right. Phenomenal episode. If you go back, if you go to thecatholicmanshow.com and just type in Father Gregory Pine, you'll see we've had him on several times. All of them have been wonderful.
Dig.
Yeah, totally dig. And so it's the virtue of studiousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a sub virtue of temperance, which we've talked about before on the show.
Uh-huh.
I like that it's like it seems very fitting that it's a sub virtue of temperance.
Yeah.
Off the cuff, if I didn't know this already, I would have said maybe prudence.
I would have said like justice. But everything's a sub virtue of justice, though. Virtues can be sub virtues rather, can be under more than one virtue. It's properly, Aquinas will say it's like, it's properly under this one, because that's like mostly what it is. Mm-hmm. But it also belongs to others as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's like 100% one thing and not doesn't bleed into other things.
But its essence, is most like this other one.
Yeah. So studiousness is desiring and preparing your mind to learn new things, right? And to cultivate a habituation of study. It's, I think, probably what a good definition, a working definition.
Yeah, I like it.
Can we work with that definition?
I find it satisfactory.
Okay. So he says that there's two different vices that are opposed to studiousness. One being negligence, which is I think a lot of what people experience, right? They just don't do it. They just are negligent to studying.
I'm glad he put, sorry, I'm just looking ahead, curiosity on here too, because I think that's an important
right. So then the other, so if studiousness is the middle virtue, then one extreme is negligence, meaning you just completely avoid it altogether. Mm-hmm. And then the other side is that, which requires prudence. So this is why it falls into multiple different virtues. But the other side is curiosity, right? Vain curiosity. And this is where he makes this very profound, I think, argument on ambition. And he says, actually, ambition, or this vain curiosity, is a hinder to the pursuit of knowledge, and is not the intellectual life. So this is almost like an intellectual masturbation, if you will, where you're just like trying to spout off to make yourself sound smart, for just the sake of sounding smart. right? Which we've probably all fallen into this trap before, right? When you learn something new and you're like, oh, I'm going to sound very smart
Well,
here.
I'd like to disabuse you of that notion now.
Right. It's going immensely. But anyway, so we're out of time on the radio. If you go check us out on thecatholicmanshow.com, subscribe to our podcast, give us a review. We'd love the opportunity for you to review us and help promote the show.
Please do.
We're on the Lord's team,
The winning side.
so raise your glass.
Cheers to Jesus.
Cheers. So, but anyway, so he's talking about this ambition, and he says that that it is completely useless for its results, and that again, it's not an act. It ceases to be an act of the pursuit of knowledge. So if you're like trying to learn something just for the sake of learning it, so that way you can hold that knowledge over somebody else, or
and I think it could even be more than that. I have moments where, and I think this happens to everybody too, you're doing a task and then something comes up and it's like, oh, I wonder what what is that tree over there? Well, let's look it up. And all of a sudden, like, you let this stupid curiosity derail you from an important task. And sometimes you're doing it on purpose, and you're willingly, because I'm more interested in looking up this trivial thing. It's like it's in many ways I also view it as the pursuit of trivial information as opposed to the pursuit of essential knowledge. It's the same kind of thing, and what it does is it's also akin to sloth in this way, that I'd rather put off
what I'm actually supposed to be doing.
thing I should be doing, because I find it arduous.
Right.
And it's like but it's very sly, because it comes wrapped in this knowledge, like, learning bow, this package of learning. It's like, well, I was reading about the red cedar, the eastern red cedar. I was learning about that, so that's
from
that's
Lebanon.
intellectual.
From Lebanon, because it's biblical.
It's biblical, so, and it's about how to make honey too, because it's about like the gospel.
Turns out the bees.
Actually, we are getting ready to have bees, Adam. And bees are crazy.
They are. They're crazy.
They are like nuts. We're not going to talk about it,
right?
Because that would be the very thing that we've just been discussing. But just so you know, they're off
crazy.
the chain. Yeah.
So anyway, he says the order of the mind must correspond to the order of things, and reality rises us towards the divine.
I knew that already.
Yeah,
I'm so smart.
So he talks about how, though, studying at the expense of our spiritual life is a fool's game, and is something that people who enter into, like, deciding that they're going to start taking the intellectual life seriously run into a lot, because when you do start learning more and more, and you realize the more you learn, the like how little you actually know, and then it becomes kind of intoxicating, right? Of learning more and more and more, and you're drinking from this water hydrant type of thing. And then you end up neglecting your other duties. Namely, neglect, like, there's a veneer of, I'm learning more about God. And then but you're not being with, you're not, you don't have a relationship with him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you're not loving anybody.
Right.
The flip side of this is, like, there's another side to this coin. I think when people start learning philosophy, or they encounter it, maybe they don't have a desire much for it, and there's this kind of reaction. It's like, who cares? This is like, how is this going to help anybody? And one of the things you'll hear is that all philosophy is practical, right? That it all applies to your life, and and that's true, right? And so, if you take that too far and think all of this learning and knowledge, distinctions, the more distinctions I can make, the more practical it is. Right. Well, that may be true at the right time and for the right reasons.
That's correct.
But not all the time, because, well, you also you have a vocation that calls you to do a variety of things, not just one thing.
Right. So the next thing he talks about is the spirit of prayer, which is crucial and a hinge on the intellectual life. But he says that every study is a study of eternity. And this is properly ordered, right? So every study of truth is the study of eternity, because we will be in eternity in front of the beatific vision, hopefully, God willing, and with your cooperation. You'll be in front of the beatific vision for all of eternity. And you'll just be contemplating the whole time, right? The beatific vision. You'll be like contemplating, studying, like absorbing, receiving. Being a part of the beatific vision, the Trinity. So he says on this earth, on this side of the veil, anytime that we're studying truth, we're studying parts of eternity, which I thought was just
that's true because
fascinating.
The truth is the truth,
right?
It's not like an expiration date on it,
right? But he says intelligence only plays its part fully when it fulfills a religious function. That is, when it worships the supreme truth in its minor and scattered appearances. So, like, there's truth all over the place, and it's like, what is trigonometry? Like, how does that reveal God? Yeah. Right? Well, there is truth in that.
And, like, every 7th grader
has
asked this exact question.
Right.
This is dumb.
Right. But there's truth in that, and there's beauty in that, and thus there's a little sliver of your Creator in that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
plus you need it. You need it in real life,
right? So he says, for fully awakened, for the fully awakened soul, every truth is a meeting place, which I think is really cool. It's almost like a little mini adoration, almost. That's a big caveat, but without the whole Eucharist. Yeah. But because there's people anyway. So anyway, he talks about how like it actually awakens the soul. It awakens your appetites when you receive this truth, right? And you've experienced this, right? So you come to a fuller knowledge of something, and inside, like, your emotions or your appetites, like, this endorphin is released in you, and you realize how good this is, how true this is, and it's almost intoxicating again. Like it's like something that you want to just receive and just be like engulfed in.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Go sit in adoration for an hour for 52 weeks. Once every 52 weeks. Or once a week for 52 weeks, and tell me that doesn't happen to you. Mm-hmm. It will. So, but he says, he makes this warning that as you continue growing in your intellectual life, you cannot equate that growing in your intellectual life and growing in truths will not correlate with growth in your prayer life.
It's a really important point.
Which I think is, I think that's such an important, because you can sit there and grow and learn, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, the more you learn, the more you can love. The more I love, the closer I can come to God. The more that my prayer life should be enhanced. It should be like better. And he makes this. He claims, he says, like, no, that's not, like, you cannot correlate those two things. And a lot of times, like, this is just my opinion. This is not him. Like, I'm deviating now, and this is just my observation. But a lot of times, men who are very intellectual actually have a very dry prayer life. And this is just me talking to different people, right? The men that I have talked to who are very intellectual, they have a very dry prayer life. Now, and I think that that's grace from God, that He gives them a dry prayer life for their humility, right? Because God has given them certain gifts, namely to understand and convey knowledge,
which are often public gifts.
Which are because as a teacher, like if you're just a man of the intellectual life, and you're a professor, you're in academia, your job is to give a truth. Like, your whole job is to teach the truth to others, and that that could be some soil of the growth of pride, because
Sure.
Because you now think that it's my knowledge.
I have all the truth.
I have this is me that's being able to convey this. And so sometimes the Lord gives these men dry prayer lives so that they continually search, and it humbles them, and they know that it's not their doings but God's.
Right.
So I think that's a good correlation, because like as you continue growing in your intellectual life, hopefully you start reading more and you start looking into new things. I know that I thought that was correlated, right? And I was almost expecting that. And so that's just a good cap.
Well, I read all of Peeper. I should be able to pray better now.
Right. Yeah. I should have much more leisure. Right.
Jesus, where are you?
Right.
Eli, lema sabachthani.
Why have you abandoned me? So again, he's talking about like there's core virtue, common virtues. There's like virtue proper to the intellectual life.
Okay.
Part of the intellectual life, it requires the spirit of prayer, and then the last thing he talks about is the discipline of the body.
Discipline
of the body. Thank you. A discipline of the body. He says, Aquinas says that to a good bodily constitution corresponds to the nobility of the soul, which is just kind of a fancy way of saying that, the way you uphold, like how you hold your body shows kind of your outward reality reflects the inward reality of who you are.
That's the way it works.
Right. And so he talks about how the importance of the active life and so you have the contemplative life, the active life, and how they both you need both.
You have the religious life and the lay life is like kind of how we would say it today, right?
So he said, well, no, like you can have
good works, like doing good works. That's the active life, whereas the intellectual life is the study.
Yeah, if you mean by good works, like just like your duties in life.
Yeah,
like,
but I under the impression anyway that often they equate the active life is like people who are in the world doing like things,
whatever your state in life it requires you to do,
and that the intellectual life is often referred to as like they kind of equate anyway with religious life.
Right. Yeah. Yes. There's this intellectual operation that takes place in the continuity with and independence of the active life. So like they both require one another, right? And we see this in our, like, at least in my, like I've seen this in my own life where I've gone and read something and like I had no idea what I actually was read, right? It's like, okay, that was great, Gary Lagrange. I have no idea what you were talking about there. Mm-hmm. And then I'm over here chopping wood, not doing anything but just sitting there, a mundane task of chopping wood. And as I'm, chopping this wood, all of a sudden I realize, oh, that's what he was talking about. Like, this is what he was talking about back when I was reading this. But it's because I took, I was...
You took it from the intellectual into the active.
Into the active, and the active helped the intellectual.
Yeah. It's a good example.
So anyway, so he talks about like, so he gives a few suggestions. I'll just go through them and then I'll let you have, if you have any like commentary, feel free. Okay. So a few suggestions on the discipline of the body. He says like have sound hygiene. He says this is actually an intellectual virtue, and I think this is very important in his time. Remember, this is like 17th, 18th century. In France, and like there was this whole notion at the time where there were intellectuals, and it's like I'm just such an intellectual. I don't even have time to comb my hair or bathe or anything like that. I'm just so deep in my thoughts and my work that I don't have time to take care of myself. To have proper decorum.
Okay, well, nobody wants to be your friend. I just want you to know that.
Right. But I mean, this is what like true, and this is like a something that a lot of intellectuals have to overcome. I'm not
Did you smell how bad he is? He is so smart. He's just got to be smart with how bad he smelled.
I don't know if you've actually experienced this before, but this
I have not.
Okay, I mean, this is a real
still around today.
Yeah, even today.
All right.
Like a lot of high academic people, like a lot of times, like it's almost also like a prestige thing. It's like, oh, I didn't even have time to, get dressed properly or fix my hair properly. I
kind of know what you're saying.
Or I have this 5 o'clock shadow. It's like I didn't have time to do that. I was so involved in my work and my studies that I didn't have time.
I just assumed that it was like, actually, okay, yeah, you're really smart. And there are consequences. Like, everybody only gets so many chips. And you have a lot of your chips on the smart side and almost no chips on the social side, okay? Like, you don't understand a lot of times when, like, maybe there are social things you have no clue about. And that's why you don't realize that you need to shower every day. And, you would be doing it if you understood anything about social settings.
Right.
And that's just not where your chips are, and you're really good at the other stuff, right? Like,
right.
you can math real good, but you don't know how to tell a joke. You cannot tell one.
Right.
So I kind of assumed a lot of it is that.
Well, I think that
they just literally don't know.
Yeah. So he says sound hygiene. He says live as much as possible in open air.
What does he mean by that? Like outside?
Get outside.
Just
get
be
outside. Yeah. Be free to play. Again, leisure.
Mm-hmm. So far, like, it's funny because none of these are about, like, you might have thought it was, do something so that you're ready to study, or, so that blah, 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 blah. So these are things that would actually take you away from studying so far.
Yes, but also in help.
But prepare you, right, yeah, so you're well-rounded. So you're rested. You're not fried when it comes time to do it.
Right. He says every day you should take to exercise. He says those who do not find time to take in exercise must find time to be ill.
That's hilarious.
Which I thought was really funny.
That could be a good T-shirt.
Yeah. Easy manual work is precious both for mind and body. Again, it goes back to like chopping wood, right? It's good for the mind and body. Like just kind of monotonous.
I like doing. I know this is weird. It might sound strange. I like doing monotonous tasks, like chopping wood,
right?
Or
mowing the yard.
Like I don't know. There's just something about it. Like I don't know if you've ever had to stuff envelopes, where you just are kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's only fun in short intervals. But I do enjoy, like, I'm just sitting here. What are you doing? Like, I'm doing something, but I'm just sitting here doing it. I like it.
This is why smoking brisket or smoking pork loin is awesome. Because you're just sitting there. Yeah, I'm
busy.
Yeah,
I'm busy doing something that needs to be done.
Right.
And I'm just gonna sit here.
He also says look after your diet, and he also says pay attention to your sleep. So these are things that also, as we are going through XS90 and you're creating these
Don't
disciplines.
you feel like all of those could be in the like a New York Times bestseller
book
right now?
I mean, Jordan Peterson could rip this off right now. And
in fact,
here's the
first one reminded me of him. What was the first one?
The first one was sound hygiene.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. For some reason, that just reminded me of him saying "make your bed."
Right.
Every day.
So this is New York Times bestseller. You could easily do that. Yeah. So, but he talks about. So first, he talks about the obvious things of disciplines of your body, meaning fasting and like subduing your appetites and desires. But he says like these other things are actually like how you cultivate an intellectual life, because you're preparing your body. And he says like you may not think you have time to do these things, but these are what actually help you do the things that you're supposed to be doing well. So,
like we mentioned, you and I have kind of incorporated a little bit. I don't want to, make it sound like you and I are, intellectual,
dude. No one
rigorous.
Thinks that. Let me tell you, nobody thinks that. There's not one person listening right now that.
And if they do,
Jim is over here laughing at us. He's been laughing at us this whole episode.
If someone does think that, you need to listen to more episodes of our show.
Right.
Okay. But what I have found in incorporating that a little bit, right? You know, like, okay, setting aside a time to read or whatever it is. Actually, there's something about having it on the schedule that helps me be more efficient. I find that I waste less time, and that's like one thing that I realized is that, I feel like I'm so busy because in retrospect, I see I was wasting a lot of time in little ways. And when I realize, like, no, I give myself a deadline, or, you know, because I am setting time aside to read, I find that all of a sudden I have made time to read, and I stop wasting time in little ways along the way, or whatever it is. Or that some things simply don't need to be done. It's a strange combination of different things, but I'm not failing to do anything, and yet I've somehow made time to read. Maybe it's just God's grace. I don't know, but no, that's the way I've seen it in my own life happen.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in being intentional. In this book, he says, like, vocation is concentration. Like, vocation, like whatever your vocation is, it is concentration. It requires concentration. And so when you have an ordered life that is ordered properly towards your state in life, where everything seems to like be structured, like there's structure, and you still allow yourself time.
I think order is the most important thing in life.
Having
things well ordered. If you have things well ordered, everything works.
The older that I get, the more I realize that I do have time to study, and that by studying, it weeds out things that I actually don't have any business doing anyway. I don't need.
And it's funny that, like, now that you have 5 kids, you've found that you have time to study.
Right.
Okay.
Like
when you had
what
2.
happened when I had 1?
Right.
You know, like, I was not, let me tell you something. I was not getting up and reading in the morning the first 5 years of our marriage.
Sure.
You know, and
you were exhausted.
And I was exhausted.
And you were much younger.
Right. Right. So I had all the things going for me. So I don't know. I think that it is incredibly important in our day and age to learn more about our faith, to learn more about reality, because RCIA, as good as it is, even if you had the best RCIA class, if you're a Catholic convert, even if you had the absolute best in the nation, it still is not enough.
That's not what it's supposed to be.
It's
anyway.
a launching point, right?
Right.
And if you've been a cradle Catholic your whole life, you still have not plummeted the depths and beauty of the church's wisdom. And in this day and age, that's going to require men to have some chests, like to have backbones, and to stand up for certain principles, certain truths that seem to be under attack these days. Is going to, like, it's not all about physical confrontation, but we have to be men of the intellect.
Yeah.
And
we have to stand on the truth. And I'll tell you, like, you know, you and I haven't been we're in this great books group now. It's been a little over a year, you know, that we've been doing that. So not a long time, but it has really changed the way I think, and it's changed many of my opinions, like the dialogues of Socrates. I found some of those like, wow, I've never considered this idea. And now that I am considering it and hearing Socrates' arguments for it, like, I find them very compelling. And I can see just how it changes the way I view myself in the world today.
Because you're coming closer to reality.
Right. And I'm very comfortable with that. Like, even though I realize that my new view of myself in the world demands more of me, I'm reassured at the same time, that because I know that I'm standing more firmly on the ground.
Yeah, I may over the next couple months refer back to this book and make some more episodes on it, because this was just one chapter, basically,
Oh, really?
Of the book. Like, he has a whole chapter on the organization of life, on the time to work, the field of work, how to study. Like, he goes through all these things, and it's not just for priests and monks, but it's for the laity as well. And he makes this understanding, preparation for work, like how to prepare to work well.
Coffee.
And create
End of the chapter.
Yeah. Spoonfuls of honey. And then like making time for creative work and like how work in relationship with man. I'm sure that John Paul II, pulled a lot of stuff from him whenever he wrote.
Did he?
I think so. Whenever he wrote the encyclical on the human dignity of the worker, what is it? I don't know in Latin. I forget what it. Labor and of the humanity. I don't know. There's guys out there that are thinking.
Humanity and labor and Latin and dignitatem.
Man, yeah.
Humane, dignitatem.
Vitae.
Mulieris.
Quid est vir.
Yeah. Quid est veritas.
Yeah. Okay, Jim, wake up.
Jim, you could not stay awake for even 1.5 hours.
Anyway, that's all I have.
A Palm Sunday joke, everybody.
That's all I have. I hope that it moves you to be intentional and to have concentration. What do you think?
I think it's great. I didn't lose focus for 1 minute.
Turns out you're a liar.
I actually did get distracted on some of your notes while you were. Oh yeah, I should be paying attention. I'm supposed to be. I'm part of the podcast. I'm not in the audience. What?
Yes, concentration.
Yeah, I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah.
Could you run it by me one more time?
Right.
Well done. Well done. So, actually, before we go. I want to talk about the practical. Let's just talk about the practical side of this. So somebody says, okay, I get it. I believe you. I want to incorporate it, but they just feel very busy and they don't know what to do. What would be your suggestion? Because I think you have to first.
My suggestion's
pick a time.
My suggestion is not going to be a fan favorite.
That's okay. Nobody cares about that. Let me guide you. Let me ask some questions and get your feedback.
Okay.
Because I think what you need to do first is you need to decide a time. You need to schedule it. It's got to be on your calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Afternoon, evening, or morning.
Mm-hmm.
What's your suggestion?
So, what I was going to say,
with the caveat that obviously it's got to work for your schedule. It's going to be different for different people.
What I was going to say is, if you ask me like, what's the one thing you need to do?
Go to bed earlier.
Go to bed earlier.
I knew it, and I totally agree with you.
And that's like the hardest part.
Because you waste all the if you want to talk about what are the minutes of your day where you are just wasting time the most. And I don't mean like in a real leisure kind of way.
Right. You're not talking about like, and we're not even looking at utilitarian purposes, but like what is like the time that is not leisure, is not either work or leisure. Where's the sloth or the acedia?
Right. Is it the show that you watch in the evening that probably takes the Lord's name in vain and probably is a slow drip on darkening your intellect and like leading you down the slow and easy path of hell? Is it that show that you like make excuses for? It's like, well, it's not that bad, and they do pray. There's the one character there's a priest in the show, or what? Like, is it that show, or is it the movie that does all the same things? Or what is it?
Right.
Is that the thing? It's like, you probably shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Right. So, I will tell you that when I made the decision that I'm going to bed early.
And you go to bed like...
I go to bed early.
Early.
This is...
Like your kids actually put you to bed.
Good night, Daddy.
Sleep with the angels.
Yeah.
Rise with the saints.
I do go to... But when I made that decision to do so, it totally changed the way I It totally changed the way I lived my life.
Okay. And you've been doing it for like 6 months, a year? How long?
About a year.
Okay.
Where I have been going to bed, about 9:30. I'm in bed at 9:30.
Can you believe? I mean, everybody used to do that. Electricity is not that old.
Right.
Okay. And it's just weird to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just went to bed. When it got dark,
mm-hmm.
you couldn't do anything.
Right.
So you went to bed because
Right.
you didn't want to stumble around your house.
Right. And I get up about 5:15 every morning. If I go to bed by 9:30, I can be asleep by 10. I can get up by 5, and I have 7 hours of sleep. As long as, over the last about 5 weeks, there's been a little bit of a change since I have a
With the
newborn.
baby, yeah.
Because I'm up a lot more than
You
that.
should really try contracting narcolepsy.
Mm.
Because then you could go to bed at, what'd you say, 9:30?
Mm-hmm.
And be asleep by like 9:33.
Right. That would be awesome.
And when I say asleep, I mean REM sleep.
Right. But I'm able to get up, and my prayer life completely changed at this point because I get up, I read the Divine Office, I read morning prayer.
Yeah.
And right now I've been reading, obviously been reading Exodus 90 prayers. The Exodus,
Reflection, yeah.
the reflection that exists in the
and-
gospel and the reflections on that.
And the book of Exodus.
Right. So I give myself opportunity, obviously, for silent prayer, and then I'm able to read for basically an hour and a half before I move on with my day. And the amount of what you're able to do in an hour and a half, and I make sure I have either my phone on do not disturb or I have it away from me. I make sure it is not around me. Or does not buzz. But it's amazing how much you can actually read.
Oh, gosh.
If you have an hour and a half a day.
A day? Oh, you could read like books.
Right.
A week.
Well, and this is why, I'm reading Leisure, the Basis of Culture. We're reading Homer. I'm reading this book. I have 3 books that I typically have going on at one time. But it's because I block off like an hour to an hour and a half a day to read. And it has totally changed the way I just live my life.
Mm-hmm.
For the better, by far. If you start your morning in prayer when your mind is fresh, and it's, you give the best part of the day to the Lord.
And here's the other benefits. Is like if you're going to bed that early, there's no way you have time to do the dishes, okay? So you don't have to do those anymore. Just kidding.
all of our dishes are done way before then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You do have to though eat. You have to make sure that your whole schedule has to be on track with this. So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, and this is something you have to talk about with your wife, right?
Yeah. Right.
To make sure
Right. Yeah. That's an important point. Is that you cannot try to do this without your spouse being on board, and that if.
And you'll find if your wife, buys in and wants to do it with you, the prayer time together in the morning is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And your wife ends up, enjoying that time of peace and quiet before the chaos of the day with kiddos and everything else. It is very refreshing for her as well. Yeah. So I don't know. If somebody asked me, hey,
there are other ways to do this too. I mean, it doesn't have to.
Sure, I
be,
mean, there's other men. There's men out there who are.
Your schedule is everybody has their own schedule. So I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
because honestly, I think the morning there is an advantage to that, just a natural advantage. You're not distracted with things that are going on. Nobody's cut you off in traffic yet. Right, there's just nothing that's happened.
You haven't read the angry email yet.
Right, exactly. You're starting off on and it's still dark. There's something also about
it's beautiful, actually.
Right, the quiet peace of doing things before the sun rises. And then if you think about it, then you go to and have breakfast or something, or you start work and you think wow, I've already accomplished
so much,
a lot today.
Now,
and it sets you on a good footing.
Now, what you have to worry about is, at least for, again, the Catholic Man Show is all about like things that are just happening with us. This is not like advice.
We're just talking
like,
about
us, right? Like
what
we're
we're
just
doing in our own lives.
right. We're not saying this is the only way or this is the perfect way or anything like that.
Except it is exactly what you should
But
do.
One thing that I have found that is a temptation for me that I've been combating basically for the last few months.
Drinking right away.
Yes, absolutely. Before at least John was born, whenever I was sleeping regularly and having good sleep, was I was actually getting up even earlier. I would wake up like in the middle of the night, like at 3:30, like to go to the restroom or whatever, and then be like, well, I'm up. I'm just gonna stay up.
I'm gonna get 4 hours of reading today.
Right. And I mean I've done that, but then you end up being too tired, and then at 6 o'clock in the evening,
then prudence and temperance hit you again.
Right, and you're like,
and
dang it.
When those two things, when they hit you, it hurts. Okay, I'll just tell you.
It's a 1-2 that is just like a phone book.
You ever
right
been
across
hungover?
the head. Yeah.
Temperance, baby. Okay.
So
temperance drives an SUV.
At least that's
not a Prius.
That's something that that's something that I have learned.
That's a Jim joke.
Yeah. That's something that I have learned the hard way.
Those are the best things. They're not the best things to have learned, but you learn
But
them well. You learn them well.
There are several times where it's like, oh, it's 4 o'clock. I might as well get up. I don't want to go back to bed for an hour. I'll just get up. And you get up.
See, Adam, like that's just such a different mentality that you have now like somehow adopted from snoozing.
Yeah, to no end.
You used to be a snooze guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, oh no, 5 more minutes.
Right.
It used to be, oh, I just want 5 more minutes, and now you're going like, what am I gonna sleep for like only 1 more hour? I mean, just 1 hour. Okay. I might as well stay up.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? It's a very different.
Oh, how the turntables
have turned. Oh, how the turns have tabled. We should stop. Now.
I was trying to stop 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I gotta get to bed.